Montana. 2 people per square mile. It's wild, it's huge, and here, only the toughest can survive. Rick and Nathaniel are big game hunters. For them, every season is the start to a new adventure.
Fun, excellent.
Scott and Jerry know the mountains better than anyone. They are trappers and proud of it.
I think I may have got one.
The Hollenbecks and Arthens have maintained their family ranch for generations. And they're ready to do whatever it takes to make it last for generations to come.
I'll get the last one.
Welcome to Montana, the land of the Wild West.
Got a kitten track.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, big herd elk. Wow.
Soft as a flannel diaper.
These are powerful little traps. Whack.
Musti? Woohoo! Moving now, buddy.
That's how it is around here, I guess.
In Montana, the month of March brings an end to the hardest days of winter. In large ranches across the state, snow gives way to mud, but it also brings about the birthing season. Close to the small town of Wilsall, everyone on the Arthen family ranch is ready to host nearly 450 new calves in the space of just a few weeks.
Yeah, they'll start to come. It's just the way it is. There's no math on some of this. It just go with it, wing it, get ready. It'd be brutal. This is sort of a mountainous area with maybe some more snow than a lot. You have to be prepared, or you're going to get caught with your pants down and lose some calves is what happens.
As soon as the calving season begins, the arrival of newborns is constant, day and night, and at breakneck speed.
We had 7 last night. We probably had maybe 10 or 12 during the day. We're having about maybe 20, 15. You can have 4 in an hour, you know, or a half hour.
During the calving period, the entire family is on call. Rounds around the property are scheduled, and the cows and their calves are monitored closely to make sure that everything goes well.
Is he a good kid or not? He's a pretty good kid. Easy, girl. Easy, girl. Just gotta make sure they all sucked or got up and sucked the cow and then tag them. As long as they've got up, sucked the cow, and you're tagged, I can kick them out, and their cow baby sits them from then on.
But this morning, James identifies a problem with a calf that refuses to get up.
I went down to tag that little group of calves that was born during the night. Like there's 3 of them there, and I tagged them all. And the one, when I went to tag him, his ears were thick. And then I felt his feet, and his feet were swelled up, which is a sign of, like, he got pretty damn cold.
His mother seems to be totally disinterested in him. This is not too common in cows, but it endangers the survival of the newborn calf. Without his mother's milk, the calf will die in just a few hours if James doesn't intervene.
Easy girls.
James immediately brings the calf back to the barn to try to save it. Crooked Canyon Mountain, Nathaniel Browning attacked one of his most challenging winter projects, making the new bow he will use to hunt in the spring. It took him almost 15 years to perfect the skill that he's used to make all of his bows for hunting. For this new bow, he chose to use hickory, an extremely hard wood, but very flexible.
I'm debarking this hickory. It's not really that easy, but you get a lot of bark flying up in your face right now.
All I have is a piece of wood at that point, so I have to figure out where is the bow within that piece of wood and what does it want to be also. Come in contact with it, be a part of that wood for a little while, let it speak through me.
Nathaniel must first find the most consistent grain in the wood.
This next step is critical, so I have to take it down to this white wood here and then find one layer of grain running up and down the entire thing and take it down to just that single layer of grain. That'll make the strongest bow. If you violate the grain layers, you can break the bow. The bow will be weaker.
It might shoot all over the place and never be accurate, or what I've had happen to me is that bow just explodes in your hand when you're shooting it. It just blows up. And if you have a 60, 70 pound draw bow explode in your hands, you know it can be kind of a frightening experience.
It's not the right time for Nathaniel to make any mistakes. As he removes each layer of wood, he meticulously analyzes the grain to understand how it flows through it. He detects faults and locates the areas where the wood isn't as solid.
As you're working it, it's gonna kind of guide you and show you what it wants to be. You have to find the layer of grain that's going to be the straightest, the smoothest, the strongest.
You have to be patient to make a bow with your own hands. But Nathaniel Browning has time, and he intends to make this bow the best one he's ever built. Meanwhile, near Molt, at the Hollenbeck Ranch, Sarah and her little son Rhett have a busy day planned. Henry's been away for a week. He went to Florida to take part in the United States Rodeo Championship Finals. But even in his absence, the ranch must continue to operate. And a few days ago, the lambing season started. This winter, the Hollenbecks expect no less than 3,000 lambs. So when the sheep begin to give birth, the Hollenbecks better be ready to welcome the newborns in very large numbers.
During peak lambing time, you can get anywhere from 10 lambs a day to 100 lambs a day. It's just kind of dependent on how things are going.
Every day, Sarah has to make her rounds to ensure that things are going well for the flock. First, she closely watches the recently born lambs. They've been placed in small pens close to the barn and warmer, so she can intervene in case of any problems. After the lamb inspection, Sarah goes to the paddock where the sheep have been put who are ready to give birth. She watches for the slightest sign that a sheep is starting to go into labor.
Sometimes if they're already in labor, they'll be laying down and pushing, like having in contractions. Sometimes they'll have discharge coming from their back end, and that's a sure tell sign that something's going on.
At this exact moment, this sheep appears to be on the verge of giving birth to a lamb.
Usually we'll let the ewe try and, once she's noticeably been in labor for like an hour, then we gotta step in, because if you wait any longer, usually the lambs will die, and then she can die too.
It's obvious that this ewe is having a problem and labor isn't progressing. Sarah has to step in.
Nothing was really progressing. When they start lambing, you'll see like a foot or a head, and then you know eventually things are gonna go and she can push it out, but I wasn't seeing any of that.
Although she's a bit awkward with Rhett in the sling, Sarah has no choice. She has to help the sheep deliver and get her into the barn as soon as possible.
This ewe is going through a major situation in her life. She's giving birth, so you don't want to stress her out more than she already is. So to get her into the barn, you want to do it in the least traumatic, stressful situation that you can. The great thing with sheep is they react with little movement. So what I just tried to do was go slowly behind her, and hopefully a few other ewes went into the barn before her to help guide her in there.
Sarah's first mission was successful. The sheep is in the barn. Now it's time to put Rhett down so she can catch the female and put her in a pen. The ewe seems particularly frightened, but time is running out, and Sarah has to intervene as soon as possible. The ewe and her lamb could die within the next few minutes. Back in western Montana, in the Big Hole Valley, Scott Olson went into the woods to check his traps. He hopes to catch his 6th marten of the season. This will be his last one this winter because the trapper doesn't want to threaten the number of species in the region by trapping too many animals. But today, all his traps have been empty. He spent the night in his little trapper's shack, a dwelling that he built in the middle of the woods all by himself. A good night's sleep will allow him to prepare for a new day in the woods. On this morning, after 2 hours of walking, Scott will soon reach his most remote set of traps, and the first signs are rather encouraging.
This is a pine marten trail. You can see that it's dragging its body because it sits very low to the ground. The steps are about a foot apart. You can distinctly see the foot. It's going this way. There's the heel, there's the toes. So it's going this way. It wanders through the woods, and that's how it finds its meat or its bait or its animal that it wants to kill.
Scott adds very strong scents around his traps that he makes from beaver glands mixed with cinnamon. They can attract martens from great distances.
So my trap is about 500 yards that way, so maybe he will go catch a whiff of the scent and go investigate, and that's what I'm hoping for. But this is a distinct pine marten trail, so therefore I know we have pine marten in this area, and that's a good sign.
The day promises to be a fruitful one for the trapper.
Well, there's something hanging in the trap. I think I may have got one.
At about 50 yards away, I could see a dark form hanging from the trap. Immediately, you feel this adrenaline surge, this happiness, saying, yes, I got an animal. But getting closer, it turned into more of a black and white issue. It was a skunk.
A skunk, an animal whose fur is worth 5 times less than that of a marten. But even worse, it smells horrible, really horrible.
It wasn't what I was after. It was not what I was after as far as smell went either. You not only caught an animal, you caught a skunk. That's going to require a little more time to skin, to tan, to salvage, and having to go home and tell Suzy that I hadn't quite got the animal that I wanted, but I brought you home something.
Despite the disappointment, Scott doesn't intend to give up his catch of the day. He can probably make a hat with the fur and sell it to one of his customers.
A very plain hat just made out of the skunk fur will probably sell for around $50.
To deal with the skunk, Scott has to take maximum precautions and avoid touching it.
Had I gone home with that smell, I venture to say I wouldn't be sleeping in a log house that night.
A long walk now awaits Scott Olson. After 2 days in the forest, it's time for the trapper to go home. Close to the small town of Wilsall, the Orphan family ranch is in the midst of calving. James has just found a calf who's in danger. His mother's not interested in him, and he's gotten too cold outside during the night.
This calf was born last night, in like 3 or something. His feet were kind of swelled up and his ears were swelled up, and he hadn't sucked his cow yet. I brought him down here and put him in the hot box to get warmed up.
The hot box is a type of incubator for calves where the newborns can warm up for a good hour.
So you throw them in the hot box and it kind of thaws them out. Gets their temperature back up to normal.
This is Kale, James's mother-in-law, who's taking care of the newborn. Because the calf's mother refuses to let her suckle, she's going to feed the calf herself.
I'm heating up water to make powdered colostrum for the calf in the hot box. Colostrum is the first milk, and it's the same in cows as it is in people. It's the milk that's full of not only nutrition, but a lot of antibodies. So it keeps them healthy for the first few months of life. Helps them fight infection. There's a window from 1 hour to 24 hours that they have to get that colostrum. If they don't get it within those, they're probably not gonna do well.
But despite several attempts, the calf seems to be having trouble feeding from the bottle.
He can't seem to get his tongue figured out to suck right. I tried to get him to take it from the bottle, but he didn't seem to have any sucking instinct. And I wanted him to get that colostrum. Yes.
The calf has to drink the milk or it will not survive. Kale has no choice. She has to do it the hard way. She's going to introduce a long tube directly into the stomach of the calf.
I basically place the tube down the calf's throat, and it goes hopefully down into their stomach. And then I tip the bottle up, and the colostrum runs down into the calf's stomach. And then when it's done, I pull the tube out. Magic. When they get sick, we have to use these to make sure they stay hydrated. Before they invented those, it was pretty hard to keep a calf alive. Okay, you. We check their temperature with their mouth, because calves' body temperature is a lot warmer than ours is. So if they're a good temperature, it feels warm to us. He's warm now. He wasn't earlier, so.
Finally, some good news. The calf's body temperature has risen. Now, in order to ensure that this little one survives, the second phase of the operation, and probably the most critical, has to go smoothly. Find it a new mommy.
Come on, baby, you can go out here.
At Canyon Mountain, Nathaniel Browning has made progress in the making of his new bow. It has to be completed for the opening of the next hunting season.
But will probably only be about this tall.
This is gonna be a Cherokee style long bow. So it's really gonna end up being about 8 to 10 centimeters across. That's the center.
The piece of wood he's chosen has been gradually refined. As he's working, Nathaniel approaches the moment of truth. He'll soon know if the grain of wood he chose to make his bow was the right one. In his shop, Nathaniel has to move to the finishing phase. This is perhaps the most delicate phase. To work the wood to obtain the final thickness and shape of the bow.
But you can also make a big mistake doing that. You really mess the whole thing up. I'd rather just approach it slowly, get towards it, but it takes hours and hours. Just a little bit at a time. Learning what the wood's telling you. The feel for the wood itself. And the bow stave, like where there's stiffer spots and where there's spots that bend more. Right here, I got it pretty close to, this is about as thin as I want to get there. So I got to take some more material off of up here to kind of match that. Then we'll see how it bends. It'll start to bend a little bit. So now I got a stick that's starting to bend and maybe on its way to being a bow. So getting the first little bend out of this means it's about time for me to stop with the draw knife and I'll start using a rasp on it to slowly work it down. This process takes twice as long as this other part does.
It's the final sanding for Nathaniel. He'll soon be able to test the effectiveness of his new bow. Near Molt, the Hollenbeck's ranch is in the midst of lambing. On her tour of the stalls, Sarah discovers a sheep who doesn't seem to be delivering normally. She had to catch her and put her in a pen so she could help the sheep deliver her little one.
I had a bad feeling that I was gonna have to end up assisting at some point, so I made the decision to get her into the barn to look more closely, see what was going on, and get more hands-on.
Sarah put Rhett in his little sled on the other side of the fence. The baby seems to be carefully following the whole operation.
And you want to try and find a head. I don't know if that's what I felt 2 feet and the head was kind of back, which is weird. Normally when they come out of the birth canal, their head is very close to their front feet. And that wasn't really the case. I also just had a feeling it was time to pull the lamb because she'd been in labor for quite a while.
After a few minutes, Sarah manages to get the little lamb out.
It's alive. Come on, buddy. Initially, I thought it was dead. When I pulled it out, I was like, oh man, this is not good. But then it started breathing. Come on, buddy. So you just gotta make sure he keeps breathing. But when they spend a long time in the birth canal, it takes them a little longer to come to. It was a little raspy, which made me think that it had some fluid in its lungs, which is not great either. I gave it a good 50-50 shot. I didn't like that it wasn't really perking up right away, but also it was alive and breathing.
The ewe is still in shock. For now, she seems too traumatized to take care of her little one. Sarah tries to put the lamb near her. The little one must suckle to regain strength, and even more importantly, to create a connection with its mother. Otherwise, it won't survive. But Sarah knows her role is over. She now has to let the ewe do her thing.
A lot of the times, you don't want to force animals to do things. They have a natural instinct that they're born with, and you just hope that that takes over. Sheep are very aware of what's going on around them, I think. And so I thought, you know what, let me just give them some time to recover from what just happened and let the ewe lick the lamb off and let the lamb kind of have a minute or two to gain its strength and hopefully try and stand up on its own.
Sarah will be back at the barn in a few hours. Then she'll know if the chances of survival for the little lamb have increased. Further west in the Big Hole Valley, Scott Olson finally returns home after 2 days spent in the woods checking his traps. He was looking for his 6th and last pine marten of the season, but instead, he ended up catching a skunk, an animal whose foul smell would scare anyone off. The trapper dragged it behind him throughout his return journey.
Well, we got the skunk back, and we pulled it behind me so that I wouldn't have to carry it, get all that scent on me. Plus, it just adds skunk scent, covers my scent through the woods. So the next animal comes along assumes a skunk's been there.
But Scott's day isn't over yet. It's impossible for him to immediately take care of the fur in his workshop or even to store it in the open air. The smell is still way too strong.
Because the animal's dead, it doesn't necessarily get rid of the smell.
In cases like these, Scott has a very special technique. He heads to the river located right behind his house. It's still completely frozen by the extreme winter temperatures, but just below the bridge is a dam made by beavers living in the area. Scott can take advantage of their dam to hang his catch of the day and let it soak in the cold water.
Even though it's frozen on the river, below the dam, still running waters. I'll leave it there for a day to 3 days, then take it out and skin it, and there won't be any smell as long as I stay away from the castor glands. If I do that, it will be skinned out and tanned with literally no smell. And it's a nice hide.
Scott just needs a little more patience. In a few days, he'll come back for the skunk, and this time, he won't get off the hook so easily. He'll have to finish the job. Near the small town of Wilsall, James Dunkel and Cale Orphan, his mother-in-law, try to save the life of a young calf who's abandoned by its mother. They were able to warm it up in an incubator and give it its first doses of milk to increase its chances of survival. Now, they have to find it a new mommy. And this morning, a calf was found dead in the pens.
When did this one come out?
I was feeding down here and she was calving, and then she was messing around, and then I went to go get a four-wheeler, and by the time I got back, she had the head and shoulders out, and he was dead.
It's one of those unfortunate things about any animal husbandry. They don't all live. We wish they did, and we come pretty close.
But the death of this calf at birth will offer a chance for survival to the one who was abandoned by its mother.
I guess we can skin it. Bring that cow in, or I can take her somewhere.
I got her in. She's here now.
James will use a very special technique that only a few ranchers in Montana are capable of performing. He'll remove the skin of the dead calf to cover the live calf and put it in the same enclosure with the cow who's just lost her calf.
Just enough to go over the rear end of the calf, basically, and go down the sides a ways.
I just made a little coat out of that calf's hide. Cut a little sleeve to fit over his head here. And I got one leg hole here and another leg hole over here and two in the back. And you just slip their legs through them and their head through that. And you just throw the calf in there with her and let her smell the back end. And she's like, yep, that's my calf. and the cow doesn't know the difference. Go put it on there.
James now has to put the calf's skin on the newborn and hope that the jacket fits.
Here, get up, kiddo. Pretty cute.
The cow that has just lost its calf at birth is introduced into the barn. James will reunite the female with the calf that is now covered in the skin of her newborn. Either the cow will recognize the smell of her baby, or she'll realize that it's not him and will not let him approach her.
If she doesn't like him, right away she'll like walk up and smell him, and then not just kind of act like he isn't even there. And then if he goes to suck, she'll just kick the shit out of him. Oh, worked, by God, she loves him.
James' technique worked for the cow, and the mom immediately accepts the new calf.
Now I just gotta get the calf to think that's his mom, and then I'll be a winner.
After some hesitation, it is the calf's turn to approach his new mother to suckle.
We got a winner on. She likes him.
Likes him? Good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a new lease on life. That'd be good.
Successful mission for James. His technique worked, and thanks to him, the calf will survive. He should be satisfied. He knows that Ron and Cale, his in-laws, have been fighting for years to keep the maximum number of calves alive after birth to make the ranch run at optimum efficiency. He's once again proven that he's fighting alongside them.
You won't have wire nut, would you, Ron? Hey, girl. Hey, girl. Hey, girl. So, ranch represents Granddaddy's sweat and tears because he worked his ass off. They put up with a lot of shit, let's just say that. Hopefully my generation can measure up and keep it running, I guess.
Yeah, he's Mr. Patience. The rest of us are nut jobs.
Today, Ron and Cale know that they can count on James and Haley and their two sons, Waylon and Wyatt. And every day, James is determined to show them that the future of the ranch holds great promise.
I didn't go to school very long, but I grew up ranching. It's just all I know, and I really don't want to go do anything else. It's my life.
At the Orphans, the calving season will continue for a few weeks. But thanks to the harmony and work of all the members of the family, the herd is in good hands. At Canyon Mountain, after days of working the wood, Nathaniel Browning is finally ready to test his new bow. He has to first make sure that it's flexible enough to be stretched without breaking.
Comes a moment of truth. Let's see what it does. Looks good. Nice even bend all the way across it. Now I gotta pull it, see what it does when I pull it back and how heavy it really is. But when you do that, you also are pushing the limits to what the bow wood will actually take. So this bow is kind of right at the absolute limit of what this wood can stand before it breaks. Ooh. think it's gonna shoot really good. So this is gonna be the first shot with the new bow. Not bad. A couple more and see what it feels like. Maybe I'll pull it back a little bit further each time until I get it back to full draw and see how it really shoots full on. Let's hit it.
Nathaniel has to check both the power and accuracy of his arrows, because once he's on the hunt, it often takes him several days to track down an animal. He only has one shot to drop his prey.
Looks like it hits with a lot of power. Still got a good bend in it. Didn't hear any cracking or popping on it, so I think it's gonna stay together. Time will tell, but so far, this is gonna be a pretty darn good bow. Nice short size, so it's maneuverable in the woods, easy to carry.
I'm happy with it. Feels like an extension of my arm at this point.
The first tests of the new bow are promising, and for Nathaniel, this means the end of a very long winter on the slopes of Canyon Mountain.
It was a really harsh winter. A lot of areas got a lot of snow. A lot of places got a lot of really bitter cold, lots of wind that can drive people a little bit crazy, out of their minds, and can be really taxing physically on you as well as mentally. But at the same time, you know, when you live here through the winter, it adds a certain edge. It makes you stronger and more resilient, a little bit tougher than all the rest. But then you get this great reward of, wow, look at this beautiful area that we're in.
Thanks to the long hours spent in the wilderness and in his workshop, Nathaniel was able to make many new tools and learned even more about some of the wildlife. Each winter gives him a chance to continue to improve his skills, which he borrows from the traditions of the first Indians of the Great West.
Yeah, I'm ready for the next hunting season to get here as soon as it can.
Further east, near Molt, one night has passed since Sarah helped the ewe to give birth. Always accompanied by Rhett, she returns to the barn to check on the progress of the little lamb.
I decided to go back and check the lamb, make sure it was up and nursing, because at that point, if it wasn't up, then something was wrong.
And this morning, the baby's condition is encouraging. With a little help from Sarah, the ewe lets her lamb suckle and enjoy her milk.
I got it up under its mother and made it nurse and got some good colostrum. That first milk that the ewe has, it's full of nutrients to get that animal going. And so I knew that's the most important part to getting a lamb up and healthy, is to making sure it's got that milk in its belly. It nursed really well. It was a little wobbly on its feet, but I figured, you know, had a traumatic birth, just needed some extra time and extra attention.
Without Sarah's help, the ewe and her little one would not have survived. For the young Californian who had to adapt to the hard life of ranching, this is a new victory.
Before, I would have been like scared to death of like, what if I can't do it right? What if the lamb's dead? What if I kill the ewe? What if this all happened? Yeah, now this is my life, pulling lambs out of ewes. I mean, it's weird because it's just second nature to me now. Even with my son sitting next to me, it's like a huge accomplishment.
Hi, honey. Hi. Where's my goods?
Even in the absence of Henry, Sarah is no longer afraid to manage the ranch by herself, together with her son. The young Californian has, without a shadow of a doubt, become a real Montana rancher. Further west in the Big Hole Valley, several days have passed since Scott Olson deposited the skunk he had trapped in the woods into the river. It's time to go get the animal, and especially to see if the smell is now bearable.
Much better. Much better. Now I can take him and go skin him out, not have all the smell to deal with. Ugh.
He heads to the workshop for a very delicate operation. Even if the time in the river alleviated the bad smell, he'll still have to be very careful.
A skunk has a scent gland. It sits right about here and right about here. So when a skunk gets scared, lifts its tail, it sprays out a very strong scent there. I've washed this skunk in peroxide and a little bit of detergent and a little bit of baking soda, so now it doesn't have any smell. But if I hit, as I'm cutting down, if I hit those scent glands, it's going to go poof, and I'm not going to be able to go home for a couple weeks. Left this area around the anal opening, so the glands are right in here. We're gonna miss those because we stayed away. So now this will be ready to flesh and stretch and then dry. So I've still got to take all of this meat off here, and that's what the fleshing part is for. But you end up with a pretty nice hide when it's all done for making things, hats, whatever article you want to use a black and white fur on. So even though it wasn't the catch that I wanted, a pine marten, it's still a salvageable animal for market.
Scott didn't achieve his goal of 6 pine martens for the season, but with 5 marten skins and a skunk, the trapper's record is still pretty good.
I would have to rate this trapping season as very successful, getting prime fur. Value-wise, if I sell the furs, I'll probably end up with $600 to $700. But making them into various items, what I'm going to be able to get is probably upwards of $1,000 to $1,500 off of that one animal.
After 5 months of snow and cold, the winter's about to end in Montana. Little by little, the landscape will regain its colors and the inhabitants will be able to enjoy the fact that they made it through another season, the most difficult of the year.
Steps are about a foot apart.
Scott and Jerry, the trappers, can now count their catches and sell their furs. Rick, Casey, and Nathaniel, the big game hunters, are going to have to be patient for a few more months before the opening of the next season. As for the Hollenbeck and Orphan families, they know that their animals survive the hardest part of the year, and with the hundreds of newborns to increase their herd sizes, their ranches will be profitable for another season. For them, the end of winter is a relief, but they all chose to live here, and they accept the rules. Next year, they'll face the winter all over again.
I'll be along shortly.
All right.
It was fun.